Teacher Emmy, where are we?
We are in Delphi, at the sanctuary of Apollo, and we are beginning to make our way towards the temple of Apollo that is in the center of it. So we are in Delphi, and Delphi was a very important place for the people in ancient Greece, and they came from very, very great distances, even beyond Greece. Foreigners would come here also for one reason in particular, and that was to receive prophecies. So there was someone in the temple of Apollo. We call her the Pythia. She was a normal woman who was chosen for this role of delivering prophecies in the name of Apollo. So she had to go through a very strict ritual of purification before she could do that. And she would be bathed in smoke from laurel, which was the plant associated with Apollo. And people would come to her and ask a question. For instance, they would ask, will we win in the next battle against our opponents? Or they would ask, will the feud between my family members be resolved? Will we make peace with each other? And then the Pythia would say things in a very difficult to understand way, very mysterious. And then there would be priests in charge of explaining what she said to the person who came. But oftentimes they wouldn't give a direct answer. They would give an answer in the form of a riddle, kind of. This was a way also to not tell people what to do and still let them figure out with their own judgment what the best thing was, but they would point them in the right direction. And supposedly, while this was taking place, it was the god Apollo who would speak through that woman to the person asking the question.
And why is she here?
So why here? Because Delphi is, according to the tradition of the time, the center of the world, and it is there that Apollo, or here, that Apollo defeated the python, the giant snake that was troubling the people in the area. And so the Pythia is named after the python, the giant snake.
What is this?
This is supposedly the navel of the earth, the belly button of the earth, the center of the world, according to Greek mythology. So, the king of the gods, Zeus, one day sent two eagles to go around the world and find out where they would meet, and he would have said that this is where the center of the world is. And it happened in Delphi. So he threw a stone where the eagles had met, and it became the belly button of the earth. This is the sacred path, the way towards the temple of Apollo. And on either side of the path, there used to be little structures built as offerings to Apollo and to the oracle, or as thank yous if they got a good oracle. And inside those structures were even more riches in the forms of sculptures and figurines and weapons given as, again, offerings to the god Apollo.
What are you looking at, Teacher Emmy?
I'm looking at a reconstitution of what it used to look like in Delphi. Of course, today it's mostly ruins and there's very few buildings still standing. We'll get to this one in a moment. But at the time, it was very built out. And we entered through here. This is the beginning of the sacred path, and as you can see along the way, there are little buildings and also a lot of offerings in the forms of statues, as I was saying. And each of these little buildings represents a different city that donated part of their wealth to celebrate the god Apollo and the oracle of Delphi.
And this big one is the Athenian one?
This is the Athenian one, which they built maybe after their victory at Marathon against the Persians, or possibly even earlier to celebrate the end of tyranny and the beginning of democracy in Athens. Public square in the Roman Forum. Place of gathering for the people at the time of the Roman occupation of Greece. So there would be probably shops, town halls, any kind of public meeting would take place here probably. So these structures were very expensive, and cities would have to resort to the sale of their natural resources in order to pay for it. So Athens, to be able to afford this, used a lot of the silver coming from the mines they had near Cape Sunion,
Which we visited.
which we visited, and that's where we saw the temple to Poseidon. This is where the Congress of Delphi would meet to vote and discuss laws for the city. So this was basically their government.
This building?
This building called the Bulletarian. So in front of us is a green spiraling column made of bronze, and the tip is missing, but the tip was a very impressive structure that would support the tripod, the three-legged stool that the oracle would sit on when she was delivering her prophecies. And it was bought by all of the Greeks together. All of the big city-states of Greece banded together to buy this after they defeated the Persians in 479 BC. So it was a way of them coming together and giving a gift to the gods to celebrate their victory over a foreign invader. Then beyond that, you have a very large altar that was paid for by the city of Chios. And because the city of Chios paid for this, it meant that whenever someone from Chios would need to consult the oracle, they could go before everyone else. Give them like a priority pass to go ahead of others. And it was actually the city of Chios that had it rebuilt recently in the 1900s to put it up in the state that it is today. And of course, beyond that, the huge columns that we can see are the columns of the Temple of Apollo, which is where Apollo was revered at the center of the whole sanctuary, and also where the prophecies were delivered by the Pythia.
So this is what it would have looked like before?
Exactly, and this is what it looks like now, which is, of course, a little less impressive, but nonetheless, you have to remember that this has been standing for 2,500 years.
2,500 years.
And so in the middle there was an underground room, and in that underground room, the oracle would give her prophecies, and it said that there was a deep crack in the ground where the belly button of the earth was the center of the world, and that she would sit over that.
And how would you go inside?
So you would pay. You would pay to be able to consult the oracle, and you would give a tax, and you would buy cakes from the temple to give to the oracle.